Hi, everyone. I'm Sandra Jimmy, a successful real estate agent and the founder of Jimmy Real Estate Group. My journey here wasn't easy. I turned my experiences with betrayal and property fraud into a mission to help others find safe, trustworthy homes. After exposing my ex-husband Adam and his sister Linda's criminal network, I dedicated myself to developing affordable housing projects, including homes for survivors of domestic abuse. My story proves that sometimes losing everything paves the way to building something even better. Look at you, crushing it again this month, another property sold, Susan said, grinning. Thanks, Susan. Yeah, being a realtor has really paid off. We were sitting at our usual coffee spot, reminiscing about how far I'd come. 5 years of hard work had bought me that beautiful 2-story house in Oak Ridge when I was just 32, long before I met Adam. Back then, Adam seemed perfect. Charming, supportive, always bragging to people about how his wife had bought their house all on her own. How's Adam handling the family business these days? Susan asked. You know how it is with those Chen Enterprises meetings, I said with a sigh. He's been coming home later and later. As if on cue, Linda showed up, uninvited as usual. Adam's sister had moved back to town 3 months ago after her divorce, and somehow she was always around. Sandra, I was just driving by and saw you here. Adam asked me to remind you about dinner tonight, she said, smiling in that overly sweet way I come to dread. I forced a polite smile. Thanks, Linda, but he could have just texted me himself. Oh, you know how busy he gets, she replied, waving her hand dismissively. By the way, I was thinking that guest room of yours would make a perfect home office for me since I'm helping with the family business now. Susan shot me a knowing look. We both knew Linda hadn't worked a day since her divorce. Later that day, I was checking the mailbox when my neighbor, Mrs. Thompson, waved me over. How are you holding up, dear? George and I notice Linda's car here almost every day now. She's just going through a tough time with a divorce, I said, trying to sound casual. Well, we're right next door if you ever need anything or anyone to keep an eye on things, she offered. That night, I tried talking to Adam about setting boundaries with Linda. Babe, don't start this again, he said, his tone sharp. She's family. But it's like she's trying to move in. And why is she suddenly involved in company decisions? His expression darkened. What's that supposed to mean? You don't trust my sister. His defensiveness was new, and it stung. Hey, I've got another late meeting tomorrow. Don't wake up, he added, brushing past me while checking his phone again, something he'd been doing a lot lately. The warm, attentive man I married was disappearing, replaced by someone distant and secretive. Every time I brought up Linda, he either shut down or got angry. Then things took a darker turn. One afternoon, Linda cornered me in the kitchen, sliding a stack of papers across the table. The Chens have always kept property in the family name. It's tradition, Sandra. You understand, right? She said, her voice dripping with fake sweetness. I stared at the transfer documents, my hands trembling. My savings bought this house before I even met Adam. There's no tradition here. Her smile didn't falter. Don't be difficult. Adam agrees it's for the best. A week later, I noticed thousands missing from our joint account, transferred to an account I didn't recognize. When I confronted Adam, his explanation made no sense. It's just temporary business expenses. Stop questioning everything, he snapped. One evening, I came home early and overheard voices from the study. I crept closer. She's getting suspicious about the money, Linda whispered. We need to speed this up. Just keep pressuring her about the house, Adam replied. If she won't sign willingly, we'll find another way. My blood ran cold. The next morning, Mrs. Thompson stopped me at the mailbox again. Sandra, I don't mean to intrude, but George and I noticed something yesterday. Linda was bringing strange men into your house while you were at work. They had briefcases. It didn't feel right. That night, I installed cameras in the common areas. 2 days later, I watched the footage in horror as Linda rifled through my personal files and made calls. Adam was helping her. The final blow came when I found Linda in the backyard, burning my clothes in a metal trash can. What the hell are you doing? I screamed. Teaching you a lesson about cooperation, she hissed. Sign the papers, or next time, it'll be worse. I ran inside to call the police, but Adam grabbed my arm. You really want to do that? Think carefully about your next move, he warned, his grip tightening. In his eyes, I saw a stranger. Sign the transfer papers. Now? No. He slammed his hand against the wall beside my head, fury etched into his face. You ungrateful. After everything my family's done for you. That night, while Adam was sleeping, I packed a small bag and drove to the bank. My hands shook as I opened a safe deposit box and placed inside it my passport, birth certificate, property deed, and USB drives containing the damning footage. On my way home, my phone buzzed with a text from Susan. Did you get everything somewhere safe? Yes, I replied. But I'm scared about what happens next. Another buzz. Stay strong. We've got evidence now. They won't get away with this. If only I had known then just how deep their deception ran. The house was only the beginning. Sandra, you need to see this, David said the next morning, sliding a folder across his desk. My friend at the bank noticed irregularities with Chen Enterprises accounts. Flipping through the pages, my heart sank. Millions of dollars siphoned through shell companies, all leading back to Linda and Adam. And there's more, David continued. Remember Linda's divorce? My contact dug deeper. Turns out, she ran a similar scheme with her ex-husband's family business. Property fraud, embezzlement, fake investments, the works. He pointed to more documents. They're billing for construction on a property that doesn't exist, buying materials that never arrive. That evening my doorbell rang. It was Mrs. Thompson, clutching a USB drive. Our security cameras caught something yesterday, she said. Linda used a key to enter your house around 2 p.m. She left with folders. The footage showed Linda and two unidentified men carrying boxes out of my home. My stomach churned, but Mrs. Thompson gave me a reassuring smile. Don't worry. George made copies before giving this to you. He made you retire from the force, but he still knows how to gather evidence. With Susan's help, we created a detailed timeline. Missing money, bruises, threatening texts, everything was documented. Look at this pattern, Susan said, pointing at the chart. Every time you refused to sign something, something coincidentally happened to your property. Through David's connections, I met other victims. In hushed conversations at coffee shops and private rooms, their stories poured out. She convinced my parents to invest their retirement fund. One woman, Jenny, said, wiping her tears. Then the company disappeared overnight. She married my brother and tried to transfer his properties into her name. Michael, another victim, shared. When he refused, she fabricated abuse allegations. David's contact from financial crimes unearthed more damning evidence. Offshore accounts in the Caymans, years of tax evasion, and forged documents attempting to transfer my property. My signature was on the papers, but I had never seen them before. They're getting desperate, David warned. Be careful. That afternoon, I overheard Linda on the phone in the backyard. The signature's perfect, Adam. Once we file these tomorrow, the house is mine. Then we can move forward with a development plan. A text from Susan lit up my phone. Got the recording. Adding it to the evidence file. Later that evening, reviewing the evidence with David's contact, the full scope became clear. Adam and Linda weren't just after my house. They were using Chen Enterprises as their personal piggy bank, orchestrating a massive fraud scheme. For the first time in months, I allowed myself to smile. The truth was about to explode in their faces. The next day, I stood before the Chen family board, my evidence neatly organized in folders. Adam and Linda sat at the table, smug and unsuspecting. I began my presentation, playing the security footage first. Adam's parents watched in stunned silence as their children's betrayal unfolded on the screen. This is just the beginning, I said. Your children have been systematically destroying this company. Chaos erupted. Adam's father slammed his fist on the table. Get our forensic accountants in here. Now. Linda burst into the boardroom, her anger barely concealed, but she froze when she saw her ex-husband, James, standing beside me. Tell them, Linda, he said, his voice sharp. Tell them how you did the same thing to my family. James placed a stack of files on the table, every page a testament to Linda's schemes. Within hours, company auditors uncovered the full extent of the fraud. Investors began pulling out as the news spread, and Chen Enterprises' stock plummeted. Later, in the parking lot, Linda cornered me. Her eyes burned with fury. You think you've won, she hissed. I still have one card to play. But her threat was empty. Federal agents, who had been monitoring her for weeks, were waiting for her to access a hidden offshore account. She walked right into their trap. Linda Chin, you're under arrest for wire fraud, money laundering, and criminal conspiracy. The dominoes fell quickly after that. Adam's business partners turned on him, revealing his role in an international money laundering network spanning 3 continents. Your evidence helped us crack a case we've been tracking for years, the lead investigator told me. From my office window, I watched as Adam was led out in handcuffs, news cameras capturing the fall of the once mighty Chen siblings. Their empire was crumbling. 3 months later, I sold the house and used the proceeds to launch Jimmy Real Estate Group. My first project focused on developing affordable housing on land the Chens had tried to steal. One day, my assistant announced, "You've got visitors." It was the Thompsons, their smiles warm and familiar. "We're looking to downsize, dear," Mrs. Thompson said. "Thought we'd give our favorite realtor the listing." That afternoon, Susan burst into my office, a bottle of champagne in hand. "Have you seen this?" she asked, pointing to her phone. Linda got 15 years, returned to sender. A year later, I stood in my new office overlooking the city. On my desk was a framed magazine cover. Jimmy Real Estate Group. Building trust, not empires. My phone buzzed. A text from David. "Guess who's getting an extended sentence for trying to run schemes from inside?" I smiled, deleting the message. Linda would never change. Neither would Adam. But I had. "Your next appointment's here," my assistant called. A young couple walked in, their hopeful faces a reminder of where I'd been years ago. "Let's find you a home you can trust," I said, pulling out listings. Behind them, through the window, I could see my latest project, affordable homes for survivors of domestic abuse. A large sign read, "Building New Beginnings." The irony wasn't lost on me. Adam and Linda had wanted my house, my dignity, my future. Instead, they lost everything, while I built something bigger than they could ever have imagined. Sometimes karma works through real estate. Turning back to the couple, I asked, "Tell me about your dream home." "What about you? What would you do if you discovered your partner and their sibling weren't just after your house, but were part of a criminal network? Would you gather evidence quietly like I did or confront them immediately?"